Here's the top 3 news for today. First, Russia has invaded the home of another investigative journalist. Second, Blinken engages with a Dalai Lama representative in India, risking China's fury. Third, 6 people were killed in a landslide and floods in Bangladeshi Rohingya camps. Russia has invaded the home of another investigative journalist. The house of the main editor of an investigative media organization recently classified as a foreign agent was searched by Russian police, the latest effort by authorities to put pressure on independent media ahead of the country's September parliamentary election. Roman Dobrokhotov, the head editor of the Insider news site, tweeted early Wednesday morning that police are knocking on his door, and his wife reported the raid to the OVD Info legal aid organization before her phone went dead. Dobrokhotov's residence was visited by a lawyer from another legal assistance organization, Pravazashchita Otkritki. During the search, authorities allegedly confiscated Dobrokhotov's foreign passport as well as smartphones, computers, and tablets, according to the organization. Dobrokhotov was scheduled to depart Russia on Wednesday, according to Sergei Yezov, a writer with The Insider. The house of Dobrokhotov's parents was also searched, according to The Insider. Dobrokhotov was brought to a police station to be questioned after the searches. Russian opposition supporters, independent journalists, and human rights activists have been subjected to increased government pressure in the run-up to the September election, which is widely seen as a key part of President Vladimir Putin's efforts to cement his rule before the 2024 presidential election. Last year, Russia's 68-year-old Putin, who has been in power for more than 2 decades, pushed through constitutional amendments that may enable him to stay in office until 2036. Several independent media sites and journalists have been labeled as foreign agents by the government in recent months, a designation that implies increased official monitoring and has significant negative implications that may damage the receivers' reputations. The Times and Meduza are among the targets. After experiencing the same issue, The Times went down due to a lack of advertising, and Meduza started a crowdfunding effort. The newest addition to the list was The Insider. The Latvia-based news organization has collaborated with the investigative group Bellingcat on high-profile cases including the nerve agent poisonings of former Russian spy Sergei Skripal and Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. The Russian Justice Ministry responded in accordance with a statute that designates non-governmental organizations, media outlets, and people who accept foreign money and participate in actions that might be classified as political as foreign agents. Dobrokhotov told the media that The Insider will continue to operate as normal, in line with Latvian legislation, and that the foreign agent statute would not be enforced. The legislation was utilized by Russia to slap hefty penalties on Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, a US-funded station, for failing to identify content generated by foreign agents. The European Court of Human Rights has been contacted by the broadcaster. The Insider reports that the searches for Dobrokhotov may be linked to a defamation lawsuit filed in April after a complaint from a Dutch blogger. The Insider accused Max van der Werf of collaborating with Russian intelligence and military services to disseminate fake information about the downing of Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 over eastern Ukraine. Dobrokhotov was a witness in a criminal case against unidentified individuals for defamation, according to Pravazashchita Otkritki. The lawsuit stemmed from a tweet on Dobrokhotov's account that included disinformation regarding the crashed Boeing MH17. About 50 websites connected to the imprisoned opposition leader Navalny were banned earlier this week by Russian authorities. Navalny's political infrastructure, his foundation for fighting corruption and a network of regional offices, was outlawed as extremist by a Moscow court just a month ago, preventing people associated with the organizations from running for public office and exposing them to lengthy prison sentences. Navalny, Putin's most vehement political opponent, was detained in January after returning from Germany, where he spent 5 months recuperating from a nerve agent poisoning that he blames on the Kremlin, an allegation that Russian authorities deny. The lawmaker was sentenced to 212 years in jail in February for breaching the conditions of a suspended sentence stemming from a 2014 embezzlement conviction that he rejected as politically motivated. His detention and imprisonment triggered a surge of nationwide demonstrations throughout Russia's 11 time zones, posing a serious threat to the Kremlin. Authorities retaliated by arresting a large number of protesters and launching criminal investigations against Navalny's allies. Lyubov Sobol, a close friend of Navalny's and one of the few members of his team who hasn't fled Russia despite facing accusations, claimed on Wednesday that Russia's official communications watchdog, Roskomnadzor, had requested that her Twitter account be taken down. Sobol shared images of a letter she got from Twitter informing her that the authorities had asked for her account to be blocked because it included promotion of actions from Navalny's designated terrorist groups. Isn't it the Kremlin's election day hysteria? Sobol was the author of the article. The platform's willingness to comply with the request was unclear at the time. Blinken engages with a Dalai Lama representative in India, risking China's fury. On Wednesday, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with a Dalai Lama envoy in New Delhi, a move that is sure to enrage Beijing, which regards the Tibetan spiritual leader as a dangerous separatist. According to a senior State Department source, Blinken visited briefly with Ngodup Dongchung, who gave him with a Dalai Lama scarf. Dongchung represents the Central Tibetan Administration, CTA, which is often known as the Tibetan Administration in Exile. Obviously, the Dalai Lama is an internationally renowned spiritual leader, so the gift was warmly welcomed and appreciated, said the official, who spoke on the condition of anonymity to reporters. Since President Barack Obama visited the Dalai Lama in Washington in 2016, the encounter was one of the most visible interactions between U.S. and Tibetan leaders. A request for comment from China's foreign ministry was not immediately returned. Tibet was taken by Chinese forces in 1950 in a peaceful liberation, according to Beijing. Following a failed rebellion against Chinese authority in 1959, the Dalai Lama retreated to India in exile. Following increasing worldwide condemnation of China's human rights record, especially from the United States, the CTA and Tibetan advocacy organizations have enjoyed a surge in foreign funding in recent months. Lobsang Sangay, the former leader of the Tibetan government in exile, paid his first visit to the White House in 6 decades in November. A month later, the United States Congress approved the Tibet Policy and Support Act, which asks for Tibetans to have the ability to select the Dalai Lama's successor as well as the construction of a U.S. consulate in Lhasa, Tibet's capital. Blinken met with his Indian counterpart, Foreign Minister Subramanyam Jaishankar, and other officials on Wednesday before meeting on Prime Minister Narendra Modi in his first visit to India since joining U.S. President Joe Biden's cabinet. The two sides also addressed COVID-19 vaccine supply and both nations' human rights records, as well as the Quad Alliance, a security organization that includes Australia and Japan that has enraged China, the ministers said during a joint press conference. When asked about China's opposition to Indo-Pacific security cooperation and the Quad, Jaishankar said at a press conference, "For groupings of nations to work together is not unusual. People need to get over the notion that other countries' actions are aimed against them." Blinken, speaking to a gathering of civil society leaders in a New Delhi hotel, described the U.S.-India relationship as one of the most significant in the world. Human dignity and equality of opportunity, he added, the rule of law, basic liberties, including freedom of religion and belief. These are the core principles of democracies like ours. Of course, both of our democracies are still developing. That is something we discuss as friends. Modi's administration has been accused of stifling dissent, adopting divisive policies to pander to its Hindu nationalist base, and alienating the country's largest minority, Muslims. 6 people were killed in a landslide and floods in Bangladeshi Rohingya camps. Heavy monsoon rains caused landslides and floods in refugee camps in southern Bangladesh on Tuesday, killing at least 6 Rohingya Muslims, including children, and injuring many more, authorities said. After days of torrential rain, 5 people perished in landslides and a toddler was carried away by floods, according to Mohammed Shamsud Douza, a top Bangladesh government official in charge of refugees. After fleeing a military crackdown in neighboring Myanmar in 2017, over 1 million Rohingya reside in congested camps in the border region of Cox's Bazar, the world's biggest refugee settlement. Kazim, a refugee in one of the worst affected regions, stated, "I witnessed many horrible scenarios in the camps. Shelters were flooded, and women were fleeing with their screaming children. 2 children were murdered on Tuesday, according to Onno van Manen, country director of Save the Children Bangladesh, when a rain-soaked slope fell on top of their shelter, burying them underneath. On top of these fatalities, the torrential rains have destroyed hundreds of makeshift shelters, forcing weary people to seek refuge in mosques and schools, he said. Heavy rains are predicted to persist for the next several days, according to the Bangladesh Meteorological Office. The majority of Rohingya refugees live in shacks constructed of bamboo and plastic sheets that cling to steep, barren hillsides, and flooding has made their living circumstances much worse. Today's heavy rain and floods in Cox's Bazar demonstrates how susceptible Rohingya refugees, particularly children, are to the effects of climate change, Van Manen added. Children should not be allowed to live and grow up in camps like this. A long-term political solution must be found by the international community.